British news is not journalism, it's theatre. Bad theatre, the kind where everyone's shouting, nobody's listening, and the set hasn't changed since 1998. This country does not wake up informed. It wakes up annoyed, not curious, not reflective, just preheated. Every morning the British public is gently but firmly shaken awake by a familiar whisper. You should be angry about this. No context, no scale, no perspective, just vibes, furious vibes. And the news doesn't report outrage. It manufactures it, like a factory that only produces steam and broken mugs. Outrage is the product. British news isn't selling information. It's selling emotional activation, fear, resentment, moral panic, and that uniquely British flavour, passive-aggressive fury wrapped in politeness. The headlines don't ask questions, they issue instructions. Fury as backlash over Brits slam. Nation erupts. Who is furious? Who is slamming? Which nation? It's always three people on X, one retired colonel, and a bloke called Graham who thinks Wi-Fi causes autism. But that doesn't matter. Because outrage doesn't need numbers. It needs momentum. The same story every day. British news has maybe 12 stories total. They just rotate the cast. One day it's migrants. Next day it's trans people. Then it's woke schools. Then statues. Then flags. Then pronouns. Then asylum hotels. Then a bin collection. Always something small. Always framed as civilization's final boss. And notice what never makes the front page. Structural inequality, corporate theft, housing extraction, energy profiteering, political corruption that actually costs lives. Those stories are boring. They require graphs, and patience, and the ability to hold more than one thought at a time. Outrage is cheaper. Outrage is faster. Outrage keeps you clicking while nothing changes. The BBC problem. Let's talk about the big one. BBC. The BBC loves to call itself impartial, which in practice means if one side says the sky is blue and the other says the sky is fake and controlled by Marxists, the BBC brings them both on and nods politely. No analysis. No adjudication. Just vibes and balanced theatre. This isn't neutrality. It's cowardice with a press badge. And the BBC isn't stupid. It knows outrage performs, so it packages fury in a calm voice, like poison served in a teacup. Some people feel strongly about this issue. Translation, we found a way to stoke rage without being held accountable for it. Outrage as national identity, Britain has turned outrage into culture. We don't protest like the French, we don't organize like the Americans. We don't revolt like history suggests we once did. We complain, loudly, on breakfast television. Outrage lets people feel powerful without doing anything. You don't have to change your life. You don't have to learn. You don't have to build. You just have to be angry at the correct target of the week. It's emotional outsourcing. The moral panic conveyor belt. Here's how the machine works. Pick a marginal group. Isolate a rare or extreme case. Remove all context. Repeat it until it feels ubiquitous. Ask serious questions about whether this threatens society. Never follow up when the panic collapses. Rinse, repeat, monetize. British news doesn't correct itself. It moves on. Yesterday's existential threat quietly disappears once it stops performing. No apology. No reflection. Just a new target. Why it works? Because outrage feels like participation. It gives people a sense of meaning in a system that otherwise offers them nothing. High rent, low wages, shrinking futures. So the news hands you an enemy instead. Not the landlord, not the corporation, not the policymaker. Someone weaker, someone visible, someone easy. Outrage is class management. Regulation without teeth. We technically have standards. Ofcom exists. In theory, in reality, Ofcom reacts the way Britain reacts to most problems, slowly, politely, and long after the damage is done. By the time a ruling comes out, the outrage cycle has moved on and the clicks have been counted. The system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. The real cost, outrage, doesn't just misinform, it rewires people. It trains audiences to seek emotional spikes instead of understanding, to confuse volume with truth, to mistake repetition for evidence. It hollows out public thought. You can't build a future on permanent irritation. You can only argue about flags while the house burns. What real journalism would do, real journalism would slow things down. It would say, this is rare, this is complex, this is being exaggerated, this doesn't affect your life the way you've been told, which is terrible for engagement, and excellent for democracy, so it doesn't happen. The machine is the message. British news isn't failing. It's succeeding at the wrong job. It doesn't inform citizens. It conditions them. It doesn't ask what matters. It asks what will spike emotion before lunch. Outrage isn't a side effect. It's the business model. And once you clock that, everything else snaps into focus. Outrage as a distraction economy. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Outrage is cheaper than solutions. Fixing housing costs money. Fixing transport takes planning. Fixing healthcare requires structural reform and political courage. But outrage? Outrage costs a headline and a panel show. So instead of asking why your rent doubled, you're invited to scream about a rainbow lanyard. Instead of interrogating why energy companies posted record profits, you're nudged into a culture war about a statue that hasn't moved since the Blitz. This is not accidental. It's attention laundering. Your anger is being spent elsewhere. The emotional slot machine, British news runs on the same psychology as gambling. Pull the lever. Will today be migrants? Teachers? Trans people? The EU again? To teenager on TikTok? Lights flash. Dopamine hits. You feel briefly alive, then empty. So you pull the lever again tomorrow. Outrage creates dependency, not clarity. Why calm voices can be dangerous? This is where it gets sneaky. The most corrosive outrage doesn't come from shouty tabloids. It comes from calm voices asking loaded questions. Some parents are concerned. Critics say there are fears that no source, no data, just a mood. It feels reasonable, which is exactly why it spreads. When panic is delivered softly, people lower their guard. This is how nonsense becomes debate, and debate becomes policy. The rotating villain strategy. Notice something eerie? Every moral panic arrives with urgency and leaves without explanation. Last year's emergency quietly expires. No follow-up. No, we got this wrong. Because the point was never truth. It was movement. Outrage has to keep circulating like blood. If it stops, people start asking questions. And questions are dangerous. Who benefits from this? Spoiler, not you. While the public argues sideways, power moves vertically. Lobbyists don't trend. Tax loopholes don't go viral. Regulatory capture doesn't spark breakfast TV outrage. So they stay invisible. Outrage keeps the spotlight off the machinery and on the puppets. It's political crowd control with better lighting. Why this feels so British? Britain doesn't do rage openly. It does it with manners. We tut. We scoff. We have concerns. That makes the outrage feel civilized, responsible, almost intellectual, but the result is the same: paralysis. A nation permanently irritated but never mobilized. The cost to thinking itself. Here's the real damage. Outrage destroys scale. Everything feels like an emergency, so nothing is treated as one. A bad tweet and a broken healthcare system get the same emotional weight. That's not awareness. That's confusion. And confusion is fertile ground for control. Why journalism used to matter? Journalism used to slow the world down. It separated signal from noise, rare from common, opinion from evidence. Now it accelerates the chaos. Speed beats accuracy. Reaction beats reflection. Outrage beats understanding. This isn't because journalists are evil. It's because the system rewards velocity, not depth. The illusion of choice. People say, just don't watch. But outrage is ambient now. It's on your phone, on the radio, on the office TV, in group chats. You don't opt into it. You swim in it. And when everyone's soaked, calm looks suspicious. What real resistance looks like. Real resistance isn't louder outrage. It's refusing to react on cue. It's asking boring questions, demanding sources, waiting before forming an opinion. It's noticing patterns instead of headlines. That's why it's discouraged. The quiet truth. Here's the truth no outlet wants to say plainly. If you're always angry, you're easier to steer. If you're always reacting, you're never organizing. Outrage feels radical, but it's deeply conservative. It keeps everything exactly as it is. British news doesn't need more balance. It needs courage. Courage to say, this doesn't matter as much as you're being told. This story is being inflated. This panic is manufactured. Until then, the script stays the same. Different villain, same structure, same outcome. A country shouting at shadows while the real decisions are made quietly, off camera, and without outrage at all. Not left, not right, just real.